IVM.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, the Habit Coach podcast. Happy birthday to you. Can you imagine? It's been 3 years since we started the Habit Coach podcast. Today is the day it all began. I can't even imagine that we've been doing this for 3 years, over 500, 600 episodes. Like, it's crazy. And it's all thanks to you listening in and sharing it with your friends, with your family, and everybody else. I can't even begin to share the gratitude that I feel right now at this particular moment in time. You know, I remember the first time I ever stepped into the IVM studio to record the first podcast, and it was such a nerve wracking experience. Hearing myself in my cans, as they call the headphones, while I was talking, it is so scary. Not knowing what I'm going to say and how it's going to be appreciated, how people who are going to listen to this are going to accept it or not. There was so much self-doubt at that point of time when it started. And then it's unbelievable to see the thousands of people that this reaches now. You know, it is overwhelming. It makes me feel so proud and so happy. And I can't wait to share so many more years of the Habit Coach podcast with you. Thank you so much for listening. This episode is only dedicated to you as listeners. And as an important habit that I noticed amongst our listeners, and something that I wish that you all continue doing, which is sharing. Because ultimately, this podcast was created on the basis of sharing. Everything that I learned in my life, everything that I learned from all the books that I read, from the videos that I saw, from the people that I interacted with, these are where the learnings come from. And I can be selfish and hoard them, or I could have shared them. And the podcast was born from this idea of sharing and giving, because ultimately, the more you share, the richer the society becomes. The richer the society becomes, the richer we become. Imagine if your friends and family learned the kinds of things that you're learning here, implemented the kinds of things that you're learning here. That is ultimately what I want to see in the world. And this is why this is dedicated to you, because there's no way we could have grown this much if you all didn't share. And I encourage you all to continue sharing everything that you learn. It's okay if you don't share the podcast. Share what you learn. It's even better, actually, if you share the podcast. So please hit that share button and send it to everybody in your WhatsApp groups. But it's so important to create a community of like-minded people, people who are trying to invest in themselves, people who are trying to grow, people who are trying to become better than they were yesterday. And you know what these 3 years have really taught me? It has taught me the power of consistency. Of course, I talk about habits, and consistency is an important aspect of habits. But releasing 5 episodes a week, now that takes real consistency, creating the content, doing the research, etc. And it has taught me so much about myself in these last 3 years. And the last thing that I want to say is that if this podcast has helped you in any way, helped you change your life in any way, given you new ideas in any way, I want to hear about this. Please, please, please reach out to me, send me messages, any way that you can, connect with me, because this is what pushes me to do more. This is what inspires me to do more. And that is what my intention is. So a big thank you and a happy birthday to the Habit Coach podcast. And thank you to the whole IVM team for making this happen. And I have to leave you with a super simple habit, of course. And the super simple habit for today is keep listening to the Habit Coach podcast and keep sharing it. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And remember, awesome lives, they start with awesome habits. Usually in a podcast, it's me who speaks to you and you who listens. But I've been seeing your comments, and it's time. It's me listening to you. Following the overwhelming success of this podcast, the good folks at IVM Podcast Network have decided to come up with a Kannada adaptation of the show for those who prefer listening to it in that language. Do make sure you let your Kannada speaking friends know about this as well. So start these habits and share with us your progress using the hashtag #TheHabitCoach. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME180. That's Awesome 180.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Ikka Dukka Economy, Abhinav talks to Dr. Bharat Junjunwala, author and professor of IIM Bangalore, to discuss inflation and its effects on our daily lives. On Storytellers and Storytellers, Vineet sits down to talk to Ankit Chauhan, aka Oye Ankit, the man behind the internet's most viral mashups. On Press Decode, Sarah Vagda and Prafulla discuss the biggest news of the week, the brand new COVID variant Omicron. On The Longest Constitution, Priya takes us through gender inequity at work and how women have changed these regulations. And on Agla Station Adulthood, Ritash and Ayushi talk to Nikhil Taneja. Nikhil is an old friend of the network. He's the founder and CEO of Yuva. Yuva is a socially conscious youth media organization, and in this episode, he discusses toxic masculinity. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, do remember that many of our shows are available on YouTube. You can check that out by going to our website, ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, where we have a list of all of our various YouTube channels. Finally, we'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, HDFC Mutual Fund, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Eventually, you'll see the end of your childhood,
Get accustomed to womanhood.
enjoy the experience of sisterhood,
Might get to wifehood
or not, choose motherhood,
or not. You'll learn to define your personhood.
earn a livelihood,
Change the neighborhood.
and get rid of the falsehood that life post-academia is easy.
So join me, Natasha,
And me, Ayushi,
on a journey from station starting point.
to station, what now?
Next station, Pudin station, and hopefully Agla station, adulthood.
Fresh episodes out every Thursday.